Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today to learn more about RIT's online EMBA program. My name is Stephanie Griffin, and I am the admissions officer for the EMBA program. I often get asked questions about the online format and whether or not there can be substantive quality interaction between students and faculty in an online environment. The collaborative, interactive, and personal nature of the program is what we'll talk about today for the next 30 minutes. Marty Lawler is the director of the program, and he is with us today. In a couple minutes, he will introduce the topic and explain a little bit more about the structure of the program to get us started. I'm also joined by Neil Hare today. Neil Hare teaches the challenging but well-liked marketing course in the program, and he is a big proponent of online learning and currently leads up RIT's Innovative Learning Institute, which is an advocate program for innovative teaching and online learning. Lisa Chidsey is also with us today. Lisa is an alum of RIT and has strong background in marketing and working with nonprofit institutions. Lisa is also an instructor in the marketing course with Neil. Last but not least, Scott Struther is a graduate of the online EMBA program. When Scott started the program, he was VP of Business Development at Sony Electronics, and he is now Chief Revenue Officer at ThinkSpider, which personally I think is a name that just begs to be Google searched to find out what that means. Please note that today's session is being recorded so that it can be viewed later on by those who cannot attend. In a couple minutes, I will open up a Q&A box in the left corner of your screen. Feel free at any point to type in questions, and we'll either get to your question right there or during the Q&A session at the end. We do plan to wrap up around 12:30, so if there are any questions and we don't get to them by the end, we will follow up with you afterwards. From here, I'll turn it right over to Marty to get us started and to talk a little bit more about the program.
Thank you, Stephanie, and welcome everybody to another one in our series of monthly information sessions slash webinars. I'm going to take just a minute to sort of frame the discussion for today, talk a little bit about why this topic. We've done sessions on very specific things. Last month we did business simulation. We've had prior alumni talking about a week in the life. We've had panel discussions of students and alumni talking about very specific aspects of the program. But when we discuss this program, increasingly, we're always trying to figure out what makes our program different, and what is it about this program that we think really is distinctive and meaningful to the students in the program. And yeah, we have a focus on executive orientation. We've got a very strong focus on leadership. We offer 5 courses. We have a personal coach in the program. We have a very strong global orientation embedded throughout the program, and particularly towards the last third of the program when students take international finance, they take international business, they do a project on the international residency. We have all of those things. But underneath all of that, I think what we've concluded is that what makes the program work so well is we've really tried to cultivate a very personal and collaborative environment. So I'll talk a little bit about what those attributes are over the next couple of minutes, and then I'm going to pass the conversation over to Neil and Lisa specifically to talk about how they interact and so forth, and then we'll ask Scott to talk about this from a student perspective. So what do we mean when we're talking about personal and interactive? Well, for one thing, we are a very personal program. We're not a MOOC. We're not even a very large format. We consider ourselves a small format online delivery program. We've got a program where we expect everybody to participate. It's an Executive MBA program. There's really no free riders. You can't hide in the program. The program is structured so that everybody has to participate in a regular fashion. We've got very structured interaction. So, for example, every class each week has a number of required discussion posts. There is usually, every class has a team deliverable that's due at the end of that 6-week session, and students work on those things week to week. So we've designed the program so that people are, in a way, sort of forced to collaborate with each other. We give very regular and frequent feedback, so students are evaluated on their work at least a couple times a week. Those discussion boards are evaluated, the individual deliverables are evaluated, and that happens for all courses very quickly. We've got, I mentioned we've got a leadership focus in the course, and we have a Dr. Mike Polanski is sort of a personal coach, works with teams initially right from the start of the residency, where teams are working on a team contract and where they're figuring out what the rules of engagement will be among themselves. But he also works with people individually through the program. So they start a professional development plan right at the start of the program, 360s, and then right to the very end of the program, he's working with students to figure out how the program was meaningful to them. We have a residency, and Scott will be talking a little bit about what his experience. This is a very immersive deep dive in, and there's some amazing chemistry that takes place over a 3-day period where people come in and don't know each other, and by Saturday at 5 o'clock when they leave, they're behaving and acting towards each other in a very different way, and they're going to be spending a lot of time with each other over the next almost 17 months of the program. We have have designed some aspects of the program that really reinforce this notion of working with teams, collaborating with each other, and there's no better example of that than our capstone project, a 24-week project that we think is quite distinctive. It's a project that each team has to work with a real messy client project, and these are the kinds of things that the team has to dig deep into the tools that they've been learning for the prior 12 months and really work together to develop a solution for a client. And then we have the international residency. So again, we have a second very immersive face-to-face experience. The slide I have on there, that little thumbnail that you can't see probably, was a visit that we did to Walmart in Santiago, Chile last year. In 2 weeks, we're going to be taking both the online cohort and the on-site group to Vietnam, and we've got a fantastic trip lined up. 5 specific client projects are going to be done by the teams that are going to be there. So we've spent a lot of time developing relationships and projects for people. So as you can see, the entire program is designed around engagement, students working with each other, students working with faculty. And lastly, here we've got every class has 2 instructors. We have a primary and a secondary. I'm going to turn this over to Neil and Lisa now, but I do want to say, why Neil and Lisa? And every class except for 1 credit course in the business simulation has 2 instructors. And we find that works very well for us. And Neil and Lisa in particular seem to have worked out some really effective tag team approach to the class. So Neil and Lisa, I'm just going to turn it over to you. And maybe you can just spend a little bit sort of introducing yourselves, talking a little bit about yourselves, maybe some aspects of how you work together and complement each other. If there are things about teaching in this program that are different from both of you do teaching in other programs as well. And even, what's fun about this program, because I think that's part of the personal nature of the program. So I'll turn it over to you guys.
Okay, very happy to talk about the program. So I'm Professor Neil here. I am the primary instructor for marketing strategy, and the person below me is my savior, my second in command, that is essentially the person that interprets the sort of odd language that tends to come out of a professor's mouth every so often, and it's basically the person that saves your life when it comes to putting in high quality assignments and things like that. So Lisa spends a lot of her time explaining what I mean, reminding people that I'm not really terribly scary after all, that I'm actually a human being that loves to teach on the program. And we've developed a very good, I think, working relationship. We have a great personal relationship too, and I think that tends to sort of bleed through into the program as well. We know each other very well. Our families get together on a frequent basis, and we have a good time. And I think that's one of the sort of defining characteristics of this program compared to some of our competitors. And not only that, former experiences that you're likely to have had at an undergraduate level, or perhaps on an associated master's program, and that is that we really don't see you as students. We see you as colleagues and collaborators. And one of the reasons why I love this program so much is because I get to know you really well. And there's nothing nicer than taking someone through that process of essentially marketing boot camp for a very, very short, intensive set of what is only 6 weeks for the time that I get you about halfway through your program. Sort of beating you up a little bit and putting lots of band-aids on you towards the end of the process, and then having you graduate at the end of that process. Well, remember, we've probably only met physically once or twice, getting great big bear hugs off people like Scott on the bottom, who was one of the sufferers of our programs. I think it's just a testament to the quality and the strength of the relationship that we develop. It's everything that a student learning experience should be. But when you think about undergraduate issues and general master's degree programs, it can't be because of the nature of the size of the programs and things like that. So this program is much smaller in the sense that we encourage that. We encourage getting to know each other, creating, if you like, a little support network, not just people on the cohort, not just people in your study groups, but also between faculty and instructors and facilitators like Lisa as well. So that's just to give you some indication there. But then I'm going to let Lisa do some of the talking because she likes to speak too. Oh, and you're not coming through, Lisa. So I'm going to continue speaking. There you go.
Now can you hear me?
There you go.
You can
Yeah, I can now. Your dulcet tones are coming through.
Because I was moving my hands, right?
That's it. And this was moving very
tell?
quickly, so I figured you were saying something terribly interesting as well.
It was terribly interesting. No, I said, Stephanie, better get out the timer, because if it's my turn to talk, because I talk a very long time. But hello, I'm Lisa. I do work with Neil on the marketing course, and I am an RIT alum. So I think that has been kind of interesting for our relationship on the program, because I actually was able to take a course that Neil taught many, many moons ago, which was really fun and really helps me to help you as students or prospective students when you're coming aboard here. And we kind of work the course out pretty uniquely, I think, whereas I tend to come in on Monday. That's when assignments come out, and we sort of break down those expectations for assignments and have a live session just like this. So this is kind of how we look when you see us every week. We have our little headsets on in our offices, and we do this live, and then we get our little questions. And I think it works really well. And then Neil comes on in the middle of the week and does content. And all along we're in these rooms, and we can meet in teams if we need to clarify. And I try very hard. I do think all of our facilitators try pretty hard to get back to students that are having questions because of the nature of the program and because it goes so quickly. You can't wait for answers. You know, when you shoot off an email, I think we're required to get back to you within 24 hours, but I really try. I think Scott can tell you that I try to get back to students very quickly, 12 hours or less, because I know you're moving and shaking and you got stuff going on. So we want to make sure that you're getting feedback when you need it and clarification when you need it, so so you can move on.
One of the other beautiful things about the relationship that I think that both you and I develop with the students, Lisa, is that I mean, how many programs can you think of where it's perfectly acceptable to text a faculty member or a cohort member after the program is completely finished with a quick question about something? And I think that's the other benefit of the approach that we've got, because we develop the strength of those relationships to the extent that we do. I know that I've been contacted by people like Scott and might want a quick check-in. Maybe he's got some ideas he wants to bounce around. And likewise, I know you do, Lisa, as well. You're always on you're always on your cell phone texting people and seeing how they're getting on and stuff like that. And I think it's the power of that relationship and that network that really distinguishes us from other experiences. Because let's face it, that's really what we're trying to create here. That's why I'm so proud of this program, is that we create an exceptional learning experience. And we accept, of course, as well, that the people on these programs are very different. They're not your usual students. These are, CIOs, CEOs that need help immediately, that want answers quickly, and are focused on the implementation aspect of it, but really appreciate the network component as well. And the good news is, as well, before I forget, here is Jen, who's our librarian. That I think she's got a problem with being short, but anyway, just illustrates the fact that Jen is another member of a support network that develops deep, meaningful personal relationships with the members of the program, so that they can help you do as well as you can. So she helps coordinate research tasks with you and things like that. So it's another person that can sort of step in and help you navigate what is sometimes a very complex set of systems at university, which is our sort of library systems. By the way, just so you know, we actually use this room, well, not this room, but we use a room very much like it, to deliver the materials on a week-by-week basis. So you get a sense, hopefully, of the dynamism. And I'm a personal believer, and maybe you can speak to this as well, Lisa, as you went through a traditional MBA program versus what we have here. I'm a firm believer that we can not only replicate the level of interaction and the quality of the interaction in this kind of space, but I believe it's actually better than a face-to-face experience, in the sense that you find yourselves on a cohort program that maybe meets once or twice a week for, let's say, 48 hours. That level of intensity, one has to question sometimes how much you take away from that before you lose the will to live. Whereas with this kind of a process, you're on all the time, but it's much more interactive. And by on all the time, I mean you're coming in on a day-by-day basis, seeing the discussions unfold and developing that longer-term relationship. I think you actually get a better experience as a result of it. But anyway, back to you, Lisa.
I agree, actually. Can you hear me? Okay, good.
We can.
I agree to that point. I'm an RIT alum twice, so I went to the traditional MBA program while I was working at night, coming one day a week. It took me a very long time. And in that process, you're not interacting on a personal level, I don't believe, that you do in this group session when you're meeting people in a more intensive nature. The other thing I really love about this program that we didn't have in our traditional program is just so much personal development, I think, that goes into it, as Marty sort of alluded to in the beginning, but that's not just in, the 2 or 3 or so leadership courses. It's really ingrained in our course and many of the other courses, in how the teams collaborate with each other. So I think, at the end of this experience, you have such a really wonderful personal development experience. And I think Scott can talk a little bit about that, how he just recently, made a job change, and you start to experience some of those things differently through different perspective, not only from taking the courses, but also from what you gain from each other, in your teams.
Thanks, Lisa. Neil, I think in the interest of time, and that feels like a nice point to segue into Scott. Let Scott talk a little bit. And he's got a very different perspective. We set this up with very few slides, but we kind of wanted a faculty perspective and now a student perspective. And Scott, I've mentioned residency, mentioned the international trip. Maybe you can talk a little bit about the nature of those things and how they work to help you meet and get to know your teammates as well as other people in the cohort. And then if you can talk a little bit about the nature of that interaction with faculty and so forth, I'm sure that would be helpful for the people online. So why don't you have at it?
I'm happy to, and I'm appreciative of being a part of this process. And as everyone's been talking about, I think the residency, which lasted a few days, was a perfect icebreaker, right? It was a combination of setting a collaborative tone, introducing all the students to the expertise and the caliber of the faculty and the administration, and then also giving you a taste of the program cadence. because I know during our residency we actually were exposed to a short ethics class, which really kind of put you on the spot to immediately collaborate and immediately produce or be accountable, if you will. So I think that that collaborative tone was set right off the bat, and it was invaluable for us. I can tell you that we had the benefit of having our residency with the previous class, class 5, who was a few weeks into the program at the time. So we actually got the benefit of cross cohort, if you will, interaction, and they were able to give us some insight into how the program was going for them, and they were just in it, briefly at that point. So I think it was invaluable. You immediately got this dynamic of a big and small field. And what I mean by that was it was very clear that you had the resources and the assets of a big, strong, engaged institution and faculty, but you still had that intimacy of a small group of folks coming together, collaborating, and trying to improve everyone's experience. So that was palpable from the outset, and I think as we sort of transitioned into our international trip, which was really our second opportunity to have this face-to-face interaction, it was a great experience for us. We went to Prague, Czech Republic, and I thought that the program was structured such that it was a great balance of the historical context of the country you were in, with true current events, and applying them to a bunch of the learnings in the program. So during the day, we the program had set up a bunch of lectures, and we were spending time at the university in Prague, the economics university, and just got a tremendous insight into what was happening in Prague, the historical context of that. And then at night, we were allowed to get together within the cohort, within our team, and kind of do what we want, and collaborate and engage each other in a way that was extremely productive as well. So I think in both of those examples, you had not only the great interaction within the cohort, but you had great teacher student interaction. It was very clear that there was really nothing out of bounds. Lisa spoke earlier to the level of responsiveness, and I think it's a testament to the program and the faculty that when we were together physically in the residency and the international trip, and you're literally engaging someone on a tacit level, it wasn't too different from engaging folks online. As Neil said, the responsiveness when you were back at your computer in your home, collaborating with the faculty and your teammates, it was the same level. And as Neil ventured to say earlier, from his perspective, it was even more effective. And I don't disagree with that at all. It is really one of the brilliant things about the program, that this idea of collaboration is something that every student will bring into their professional life, whether it's a large organization or a small organization. They will bring it. It is an absolute mandate, and the fact that the program mimics that is a huge testament to the program, and this idea of doing it through an online medium, if you will, is critical, because, as you know, corporate America right now has been going through a similar transition. Workforces are distributed. Tools of interaction are more so tools such as online interaction. So once again, the program is extremely relevant in that respect. And I like to call it sort of the personalization of the impersonal, right? All of these tools can be looked at as being more impersonal than face-to-face. But the program has done a great job of personalizing those through some of the things we've talked about. And that really is a real chunk of how it is out here in the real world right now.
Yeah, Scott, I'm wondering if I forged ahead here because we've got about 5 minutes left, and I think this is sort of the last piece. You started to allude to some of this, but there's sort of two aspects to the program. There's this formal every week each class has a synchronous session, and we have an office hours with a secondary instructor, and people get on the My Courses learning management platform where all their assignments are, and these sort of structured discussions and projects and so forth. But we also hear from a lot of students that, that's sort of the tip of the iceberg. Yes, the program is an asynchronous program, and people manage their time accordingly. But we're hearing that people get together with their teammates and collaborating in a very informal way. And well, I could tell you stories, but maybe you can talk a little bit about that. I included pivo in there because I believe that's the Czech Republic word for beer.
Okay.
And I think there was a lot of beer drinking going on when you were in the Czech Republic. But so can you talk a little bit about sort of, we had a line in there called having a bad week, right? And we know that occasionally, people are working full time and they have families and they're in the program, and sometimes you have to step up for your teammates, and sometimes your teammates step up for you. And did you experience any of that, or maybe
We absolutely
talk
did.
about
I had a great
the
team,
informal part of that?
and interact with them quite a bit to this day, and that's a full 2+ years after getting out of the program. And we leaned on each other tremendously. In addition to the structured interaction and the idea of having to engage and comment on other cohort and teammates' work, I thought that was tremendously valuable. But we leaned on each other. We had informal meetings. We had informal phone calls. Just chewing the fat and talking through things that were challenging us in our personal lives and in the school lives. And it was this kind of quality interaction that really lent, an idea of kind of permanence. I mean, that these weren't just, short-term relationships that you formed to get through the program, but you really understood that those relationships were going to last. And a great example of that is, one of my classmates and my teammates, Kramjit Singh, he and I have taken sort of similar career paths from a corporate to a more entrepreneurial. And we've spent quite a bit of time together the last couple months, talking, meeting, engaging, some of that informal and some of it formal. And that was truly just a extension of what the program helped us develop initially. And I'll say the same thing about the student-faculty relationship. The faculty was extremely responsive and objective and never defensive, but classic example that Neil just brought up. I approached Neil during Sharpen the Saw this year and just wanted to bounce some ideas off of him and get some insight. And there was no hesitation. It was just nothing but, of course, this is expected. This is what we do. This is the kind of relationship that we forge being a part of the program. So I think that Marty, whether it's formal or informal, we really leaned on each other, and more importantly, we continue to do so.
I think it's interesting to note as well for the participants, the Sharpen the Saw event is our annual. We encourage all of our former cohorts to come back and beef up their knowledge in certain key areas. And so it's a great networking opportunity to become part of that bigger cohort picture of the alums that we have coming out of our program.
Great.
Well, thank you so much. Yes, thank you, Neil, Lisa, Scott, everyone for participating today. We did have some questions come in, but it actually looks like they got answered throughout the session. So if anyone has any questions that they have afterwards, the last slide will have our information on it. Feel free to reach out. To keep on time here, I'll just cover on a couple of things coming up. We do have one more information session during the fall coming up. That'll be next month on November 12th, same time, same format. And this will be Marty talking about the experience that they just had in Vietnam coming back from their international seminar trip. So that will be the last one we have before the application due date, which is December 1st. The January class, which will have their residency the second weekend in January, will be accepting applications for that class through December 1st. So feel free to call me, email me if you have any questions on your application, as well as Scott, Neil, and Lisa have all agreed to have their contact information available in case you would like to reach out to them with any questions, not only on today, but if you have questions on the student point of view, From an instructor point of view, they're all very accessible and willing to be contacted. So with that, I will close it out for today. I will email this presentation to you either later this week or next week. We'll also try to have the recording of it available as well. So thanks again for joining, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you later. See you, Scott. Bye-bye.